Certainly, happy for our football team to get the win. It was hard fought. Those guys really worked hard, and obviously it was a slow start for us. And credit goes to Western Michigan. They came in here with a good plan, and they were competing really hard. So credit goes to them on that. I am happy the way our guys did respond. It was not the kind of start we had hoped for, certainly, but I think they fought through some things. And one thing about football, it's a full 60-minute game. Always has been, always will be. Sometimes more than that. And that's why you play the full 60. And never know what's going to happen. So hopefully it's a good step for our guys to be forced in a situation, a little bit of adversity, and have to fight through that. And that's what the season's all about. A lot of different scenarios, things that you experience, and it's a great opportunity for guys to learn. All right, the whole team to learn, and hopefully we learned some good lessons today. Several positions that we got a little spark from, I guess. It was good to see some newcomers involved. Start with Ontario with the punt block. Just a guy who's really doing some good things behind the scene. I think he's got a really good future here. So to see him involved, and that's probably not the position you would have figured him, being opportunistic, and so that was great to see. Pleased with both the young backs. Kamari jumped in there, did a good job, as did TJ Washington. So we got a couple guys nicked up there, and those guys got called on, did a nice job, and then Max White to get a touchdown there at the end. It was a pretty good moment too. So really, if you go back and look at the first half, the things we did in the first half or were victim to are the things that, if we're going to win football games, we're going to have won football games, we're good at typically. Ball security, didn't check that box, and then we gave up way too many big plays. That's one thing to give up yards, but when they're uncontested, that's not good. And credit goes to them again. Their execution of both those cases was good. So, and then we missed the field goal. It wasn't a chip shot, but Drew's done a great job too. So it just seemed like nothing was really going well. But again, just credit to our guys for fighting back. So happy about that. Unfortunately, I hate to lose Luke to an injury, and it's fairly significant. So we'll know more about that in a couple days. They're assessing that, but that's the one downside right there. And that aside, just happy to be 3-0 and looking forward to moving into Big Ten play. I'll throw it out for questions.
What about the other injuries with Caleb and maybe Jazz banged up too?
Yeah, so Caleb's got an ankle. Got end of the game last week, just didn't respond. So we'll take that week to week, day by day, and then Jazz had a little bit of a tweak as well. And obviously we thought he was going to go today, but tweaked it a little bit again during the game. So I don't think it's real significant, but we'll know more here in a couple of days.
Coach, you guys played really well on special teams, especially, as you said, block punts. Did you work on that this week? You did tremendous.
Part of the things we do. We always have some kind of block in. It's just as the opportunity to present itself. So, usually when that happens, it's a good scheme, but also good execution. And it's unusual, again, for a guy who weighs 290 pounds to be involved in that. But he does some good things. And I can tell you also, he's got the heaviest hands, I think, of anybody I've ever been around. So when you slap hands with him, you feel it. So, it's good to see him just have some success. Really good for a new guy like that to come in and do that.
Coach, you talked about the mistakes in the first half, but last two games, one accepted penalty for 5 yards and came kind of on a fluke play there at the end. What do you credit that to?
Yeah, that is a positive, certainly, and just a little better concentration. That first game, I've never been a believer that you don't necessarily want to be first or second in penalty yardage, but you definitely want to be 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that ballpark. So, sometimes if you're not aggressive enough, you end up right at the top of that stack. But the false, or the just careless penalties, we had 4 of those in that first game, 3 false starts and the defensive offsides. It's hard to win consistently if you're guilty of that. So I'm just glad we were able to clean that up a little bit. The guys have done a better job.
In the first couple of weeks, you guys scored 24 points total in the first 2 drives. You guys really couldn't get going early, I guess. Not to put lipstick on a pig, but how satisfying was it that you guys really were able to get going second, third quarter?
Yeah, I'm just glad we got it going, because it was we were so slow at the beginning there. But that's just the ebb and flow of a season. It's really hard to read too much into any one game, and we'll probably have more games like this, and probably some more like the ones before it. And it's just the ebb and flow, and really what counts is your response. How do you maneuver through those things? And So just, yeah, happy to see that today and happy to see the run game get started a little bit, and, you know, it's a good thing.
There was
So
such a
when
big,
you look at the running game, that's the highest output you've had in 4 years. What has helped, I guess, from game 1 to game 3, just a 2-week period here, to where it seems like they're hitting their aiming spots and then they're getting vertical when they need to? And
I think I've been consistent in saying, you know, just execution is such a big part of it. And then, you know, you have to have the potential to execute too. So I think the one thing about this year, it's a little bit more realistic to think that we can maybe start playing the way we like to play or have liked to play in the past. The last 2 years, we've had our challenges up front. We're not there yet, but we're certainly a more mature group just overall, physically, but also mentally up front. Then I'm anxious to see a film, so yeah, execution must be a little bit better today. And it was a tricky preparation, so a lot of credit to our guys. The staff did a good job giving them a good plan. Yeah, and the backs ran hard. And tight ends have to block. The receivers have been doing a good job blocking. So, you know, if we're going to evolve as an offensive football team, that's going to be a big part of it. And I just think it's a more realistic expectation because of the maturity the guys have up front right now.
there was
What
such a
sort
big
of an effect
celebration.
does the
Right back to you.
screen pass, that touchdown by LaShawn Williams, in taking the lead right before the half, what sort of an effect does that have on your halftime and on the team as a whole?
Hugely positive. That was the second halftime, right? The second intermission. I think we lead the country maybe in 2 years now for intermissions. Time in the locker room unscheduled, but it was just a good spark play. These guys were really aggressive with their defensive plan. Good call, great execution, and just good to see LaShawn looked like LaShawn again. You know, he was cramping up in that first week, and he's been practicing really well, including the spring. So good to see him back and have some success, and he certainly did a good job getting in the end zone. So that was great. It was a good lift for us for sure.
Yeah, there was just such a big celebration around Max when he got that touchdown. What is it about him that draws so many guys to him, make them want to celebrate him so much?
Yeah, I mean, our guys really like each other as a team, and that's they've been that way since January. You know, we've added guys along the way, but they really like each other as a team. And then Max is the guy who walked on here, had chances to go other places and receive aid, but came here. He works extremely hard in practice and just is playing on special teams, doing a really good job right now. So the guys are really happy for got a little cheer from the crowd when that happened. Same thing with Stylianos. I think he seems to be a little bit of a crowd pleaser. And when Deacon hit that pass, all the guys on the sideline were, they're pretty enthused about that too. So the guys that don't get to play a lot, it's a lot easier if you're out there playing. But the guys who are doing all that work to see them get rewarded, it's a pretty cool thing.
at that point in the game, at that point in the game, you could just basically take knees if you want, but yeah, the second team in there, what made you decide to go ahead and push through?
They were strictly second team guys, and we're going to let them play. So and Deacon's worked hard. We're curious to see how he's going to operate a little bit too. Not that we were you're a Deacon, but give him a chance to throw a couple in there, and just want to let our guys play. And the guys up front too. It's talked about the front line, at least our backup line. Now we can put 5 guys out there and not expect a disaster. We've had that situation before too, so it was looked like they knew what they were doing. That's how they've been in practice, so it's good to see.
Seems
I
like
think Jackson was pretty productive today, the most productive he's been in these first 3 games. Can you tell he's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable? What was the difference?
Absolutely. I think I just mentioned on the radio, there's 3 guys I'd cite in that regard. Thing about Nick, he played last year. Obviously, he played the last couple of years and played pretty well, but he's in a whole new system. Cade's kind of in that same boat, except he didn't play. So he's working through that, and I think he missed time, a lot of time because of that injury, where he really couldn't. He could go out and maybe throw it, but he really wasn't practicing the way he'd have to. And I think he's probably pressing a little too hard and trying to do too much, be too perfect. So that'll come with repetition and practice. And then the other guy threw in the same category as Jamari. I think somebody said it's 18 months since he's played. And, I don't care who you are. You can be a 10-year veteran in the NFL. When you miss time, significant time, you just don't go back out there and play the way you did when you left. So these are really good opportunities for guys to get the work in and be able to compete. And older guys like that have had success, they'll accelerate faster than maybe a first or second year guy.
How did you find Anterior?
How did we find him?
Yeah.
I can answer that question. It was actually a year ago March. We always do we have a state clinic in late February, early March, down in Altoona where everybody, we all go there. And then we host a little bit of an open house as we start spring ball first Friday night before our first Saturday practice. So his high school coach was here and told us about Ontario and kind of gave us the whole story. And basically just said, you guys ought to take a look at them. And that's where it all started. So we did our due diligence, and then KB was, has been on top of them and made the decision we're going to recruit him. I'm really glad he did. He's a great young guy, really great young guy, and he's worked extremely hard. Got here in January, and he's just he's got a chance. He not only knows how good he can become, he's still kind of figuring it out. But it's going to be fun to watch him grow.
Obviously, you hate to lose Luke, and then you top 2 running backs are dinged up. But of all the positions, do you feel like you can weather the storm? I guess at tight end and running back at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but ironically, yeah. I mean, at least we have some depth there. We do, and yeah, the big thing about injuries is just, as I've said a million times, it's just guys work so hard to get out there in the field. Like that, everything is focused on these 12 games. And the guys put a lot into it. To have them, have opportunity strip because of injuries, but it's part of the game too. So we all understand how that works. But it's just, it's disappointing. There's not a better guy in our program than Luke Boucher. He's just such a good young guy. So, keep our fingers crossed.
Kirk, it's fairly obvious to anybody who's talked to Cade how much of a competitor he is. You mentioned how you think he's pressing a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but he's also a guy who's played a bunch of football. How do you kind of balance between coaching him through not pressing so much, but also shying away, knowing that he can kind of weather the storm and figure it out?
It'll come. He'll be okay. I'm totally confident in that. And he's just kind of the point I was making about Jamari. You know, when you miss practice time, it's hard. He's done it. I mean, he's got a resume. But when you miss time, it's just not the same. I don't care what position you play. It's just not the same. So the good news is he did more last week than he's done any time since the injury back in camp. And to me, it's just a matter of time. But also, he just, quit golf a million years ago did everybody a favor. But I do know, like, you got to let the club do the work, right? In golf, that's one thing you try to learn. I never kind of got that concept down. So if he just relaxes and plays, he'll be fine.
When you look at the defense, a couple of big uncharacteristic plays early on, then you have the weather delay, then it came in here, but then the second half, 35 total yards and 1 first down. What changed? Did anything change?
Yeah, I just, it felt a lot better, obviously. I mean, but when you give up big plays, it's just, there's something psychological about it. And, if you're good enough to create a few of those, it's a big thing too. All I've seen, speaking of Penn State, I remember giving up a big play and thought that, that was not a good, it was an auspicious beginning back in '09. And then we came through it. But, it's just, it's hard to be a good defensive team if you give up big plays. And we were a victim of it. There were good plans on their part. It looked like we'd never seen a quarterback keeper. And that's not very good, so but sometimes guys get a little bit eager, they get a little bit anxious, maybe they're peaking where they shouldn't be peaking, and that's a big part of playing defense or in any position out there. It's just, you got to have the discipline to take care of your spot first, and then if you can help out somewhere else, do it. And I think we were guilty of that a couple times today, so hopefully we'll learn from this a little bit and move on.
Not doing this at 2 a.m. this year, thankfully, but how much does it help when you had last year's experience with the weather delay, then going into it this year?
Yeah, I mean, you discuss it a little bit in the preseason about what if, but that one last year, there's no way to, I mean, that was just crazy. And then we had the one, I guess it was 19, right? Also Rename's. So, yeah, we've had practice, and unfortunately, we didn't have to call out for food, and really didn't have to have much of a warm-up. It was just one delay. So it was kind of like a halftime a little bit, maybe a little bit extra, but it does help. I mean, at least and what I guess in the back of your mind, how badly you don't want this to continue to be a delay, because we've been through that, and boy, it's rotten.
You guys are the only undefeated team in the Big Ten West. Does that mean anything at this point to you?
I mean, we're 0-0 in the West. So I'd much rather be undefeated. Believe me, I'm not minimizing that. That was the goal to win every time you go out there. I'm just happy to be 500 career-wise, not against Western. I don't know if you guys get a mile around there, but that hasn't exactly been a great series for me to be involved. So, but I'm happy we're at where we're at, and I just tomorrow will be a really good opportunity to see some things we get better at, and we're going to have to, because it's like last week we were walking into a tough environment. we're going into another one and playing a really good football team. So we'll figure that out tomorrow, start working on that, but it's, I'm just happy for our guys and happy to be where we're at right now.
Okay.